thank you all for joining this exceptional webinar. And myself, I'm Kenneth IZOMOH with the African Digital Leadership Innovation Network. And this is one of the series of webinars we have been hosting in Africa in the multi-sectorial space. And right now, after a series of webinars in Africa, we have been asked also to look into the cybersecurity space because we are promoting digital innovation in Africa. And of course, we have to raise awareness, raise the consciousness of the industry, the government, in the government circle, the startups, the entrepreneurs, you know, as we are engaging digitalization, we also need to be aware that there's what is called cybersecurity. And these are professionals, these are digital fraudsters, you know, that gets away with your data, and you have to be careful somehow how we have to secure the digital space also in Africa, starting from ourselves and how we engage with others in Africa. So the African Digital Leadership Innovation Network welcome you, our esteemed speakers. And first of all, I would like to start with Laurel Kask. I'm sure I have the right name. and of course, Laurel is the CEO and legal expert of Proud Engineers in Estonia. We'll still come back to you, Laurel, in the not while. And I also have Kamal, the Managing Director of eduCYBER SARL in Switzerland, also linked with Egypt. Am I very correct?
Yes, you are.
Yes, yeah. So I'm also expecting Simone Smith-Godfrey to join us. She's a marine specialist in South Africa with the organization called SAIMI in South Africa. So Simone, you are welcome. And of course, I have Maha Johnny. She's an AI and data policy advisor with 10-Cell company in Africa. So you are all welcome and thank you so much. And right now we get started. So I'm going to start with Laura Kask. But first of all, I will try as much as possible to see how we try to cover most of the questions that has been shared with us. And that will be at the end of every presentation. But first of all, each speaker will have like 10 minutes to introduce yourselves and also to have some kind of presentation to the audience. So right now, I'm going to start with Laura Kask. You introduce yourself and let the audience know who you are and the kind of work you do and how you think you could support the African cybersecurity space. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much for the invitation. So as said, I'm CEO of a company called Proud Engineers, but maybe to point out why I'm here and why I'm proud of, or what I'm proud of, is that I was the legal expert drafting Estonia's first cyber security law. So it was in 2018. So relatively, as you know, Estonia has had their digitalization story already for over 20 years. But cybersecurity law, the first cybersecurity law, was introduced in 2018. And this is something I wanted also to discuss here and give my reflections and ideas, is that it is not that before that, when we had a codified cybersecurity law, we didn't have cyber regulated at all. It was more that this was then the time when NIS directive, Network and Information System Directive from EU came, which made very many things compulsory. Although those were in Estonian legislation before, then we understood that maybe having one profound legislative framework for cybersecurity, where not only government is regulated, but also private sector, those of critical infrastructure, digital service providers. This is certainly something that I would also recommend for different countries in Africa where the cybersecurity law is not in place yet, but already the process of drafting it brings together so many different stakeholders and builds the community that is necessary to protect the cybersphere in your countries. What is more, what I want to point out from the EU side, the legislative framework sets the requirement for a cybersecurity strategy. And this is quite a novel thing to demand from member states, that you should have a strategy in a specific sphere. And Estonian cybersecurity strategy back then was already in 2018, we already had our third. Now we have our fourth cybersecurity strategy. And what I want to point out about this strategy, and probably later on we will discuss it as well. So where to start, whether it's more academia, whether it's public sector, private sector, who should drive the cybersecurity sphere, then I think that it's very important to cover all those different domains. We are as cyber aware is our general public, as cyber aware is the natural person behind the computer using it, whether it's a government official, an employee, or just a grandma using their banking services in order to prevent cyber incidents regarding identity theft, for example. So Estonian cybersecurity strategy takes very wide approach, not only setting some requirements for the government, but also speaks about cooperation mechanisms between different sectors, also how academia is contributing, also how the skills are tackled with. So this is my huge recommendation, that all the strategies created should take very wide approach, because cyber threats are everywhere, and cybersphere is universal. So I would end my short presentation here, and later on we can have discussion and questions. So thank you so much, and to you, Ken.
Thank you so much, and that was quite very enlightening, and definitely we'll come back to you and during our discussions. So right now I call on Kamal, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Thank you, Laura, for your nice presentation. Yes, my name is Kamal SEDRA. I'm originally from Egypt, a human rights defender, but I started as a human rights defender to feel unsafe. And I study a lot about cybersecurity and how to secure my communication. And then I fell in love with cybersecurity. And I started to be a consultant and a trainer for cybersecurity. I traveled to about 35 countries. I work with a lot of organizations like United Nations, like World Bank, Global Joint Security, and a lot of other organizations which work in freedom online, work in right for privacy. And then, because I'm in Switzerland, I work with eduCYBER, which is a company trying to tailor awareness and the training for cybersecurity, for starting from children, educators, parents, and with companies, with organizations, with media. And I'm happy also to be a part of the MAG, multi-stakeholder advisory group of the IGF, Internet Governance Forum, starting from 2013. And I'm still working with them, like as a consultant sometime, as a speaker sometime. Okay, I prepared like a short presentation about what I'm trying to say. I'll be focusing on the important intersection of awareness, capacity building, job opportunities, and the cyber threats that facing the African digital landscape. A 2023 report from Positive Technologies revealed a concerning fact that approximately 90% of African businesses operate without cybersecurity protocols. This gap highlights a critical need for solid education and awareness programs. Our challenge is twofold. We must not only equip our workforce with the skill to navigate the digital landscape safely, but also ensure our decision makers are well informed to shape effective policies and allocate resources properly. The evolving cyber landscape in Africa is characterized by sophisticated threats targeting businesses and government entities alike. These threats range from ransomware attacks, data breaches, to phishing scams. Underlying the urgent need for a strong cyber defense, studies by CyberSafe in 2022 indicate that human error contributed to 90% of cyber data breaches. This highlighting the importance role of education and awareness in mitigating cyber threats. The cybersecurity deficit is not just a challenge, but an opportunity. A gap in defense is a call for skilled professionals. We have an untapped reservoir of talent, yet a study by the African Union revealed that only 5% of African children have reasonable digital skill. A shortfall we need to address. Additionally, many computer science programs across the continent lack specialized courses in cybersecurity. It's even in Europe and the United States, by the way, but Africa is more. Our educational curriculum must evolve to incorporate these critical aspects of our digital existence, preparing a generation equipped and ready to tackle emerging cyber threats. And I put some recommendation. I'll try to share the screen. Yes. Okay. First one is integrate cybersecurity and the education. Include cybersecurity courses in computer science programs and wider education curricula to build a foundation awareness and skills. Second, empower workers and decision makers alike. Develop training programs tailored for workers and the decision makers to reduce human error and support informed. My screen is very small. I can see now. Yes. And support informed policy making and effective resources allocation. Third one is public-private partnership, strengthens collaboration between various sectors to drive innovation and resources sharing. For regional collaboration, enhance intra-Africa cooperation for intelligence sharing and collective response to cyber threats. The last one is international alliances, leverage global partnership to access advanced technology and experience boosting African cybersecurity defense. I hope it was a short presentation as I promised, and I'm waiting for your questions at the end. Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that interesting presentation. And definitely we'll come back to you. And right now, I would like to call on Simone Smith-Godfrey, and she will be enlightening us from the perspectives of the coastal and the maritime sector. Simone, please, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a lovely sunny day in South Africa. As Ken indicated, I'm a maritime domain specialist and a blue economy scholar. However, one of my focus areas in these two distinct fields is a lot on technology, but also policy, legislation, through to strategy development and operational deployment. The organization that I present is the South African International Maritime Institute. And before I joined SAIMI, I worked for the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. And during my time there, I conducted research into the application of the use of drones in ports. So my presentation is on the use of drones in ports and the cybersecurity implications that it presents for the industry. So I'll share my screen now. And then I'll quickly take you through the presentation. I'm just trying to, there we go. So the use of drones in ports is a complete new way of working that is being envisioned, and it comes from a specific set of developments that has taken place in the maritime industry that is to a large extent being driven by climate change, but also by strategic issues of the industry such as profit maximization purposes. So it's all about drones, and it comes from the fact that we would like to enhance the strategic importance of maritime security, as it is a continental issue in Africa. And that continental issue has different perceived successes and different perceived failures as Africa as a maritime continent. So it is driven by the porous nature of the very fabric of Africa for maritime crimes. So the paper that was developed, it's peer-reviewed and published on the internet by an accredited journal, is to seek the questions that drives the internet, the continent into understanding the rationale behind the development of drones as a measure for maritime safety and security. So there is some technological challenges that exist around drones. One of them is cybersecurity. However, the most prominent application of drones at this moment in time is for the prevention of maritime environmental crimes. Now, from a legal perspective, this paper clarifies the status of data that is collected by drones as it relates to its locus standi in current legal systems, because this data is merely data gathering. It is not prima facie evidence, but it provides the relevant data for the port inspectors under the ISPS code to actually go and turn the data into prima facie evidence to be upheld in a court of law. Now, the drones was first of all, it was developed as sniffer drones as a response on the 2020 global sulfur cap limit from IMO, which implies that ships that are using sulfur-rich fuels, the release of exhaust fumes into the ocean has caused over the decades and centuries very large damage to the extent where it's even felt on the impact of human health because of the content of the bunker fuel. So the global sulfur cap first aims to provide cleaner air by dropping the sulfur content in the bunker fuel of the ships, which should then have a positive impact on human health. Then its third aim is to provide a higher quality fuel deployed on vessels. Now, the implication of this is that bunker fuel standards has to change then now, and the outputs from refineries has to increase in terms of the quality of bunker fuel that that is providing. So the change management that is in this process is being required by the flag states and the port states controls to make sure that vessels are compliant. And part of this has been the deployment of sniffer drones. Now, how do you use drones as a gap sniffer drone? We all have a nose, and our nose have got software to sense a variety of smells. So when you apply this to drones by saying that smell is a human sense, and the inherent reliability factor that has a difficulty that it poses is that it's subjective of nature, and it may be triggered by memory or it may be short-term lasting. But smell is actually microscopical particles making contact with human nostril hair that are impacted by the direction and the strength of the wind. So by rebuilding the sense of the nose into a sniffer drone, you are outsourcing a mundane human activity into a highly accurate and quantifiable measure to combat maritime crimes, because it's shift now from not just sniffing for sulfur, but also sniffing for other maritime crimes. These other maritime crimes include human trafficking through toxic human waste fumes, armaments smuggling through gun residue oil, as well as drug smuggling through the chemical compounds released by the illegal substances. So how do you use then the drones as a criminal deterrent? Now, aerial vehicles that doesn't carry a human operator or flies remotely or autonomously and can carry lethal and non-lethal payloads are considered as a drone. So to use then a drone as a deterrent in a maritime environment crime sense, the relevant authorities must have a framework for implementation. And that is where Africa is stuck at this moment in time, because we lack the policy and the legislation framework development and implementation to keep up track with fourth industrial applications and its countermeasures. One of them is cybersecurity, which features the highest on the list of priorities. So I'm not going to go through how the drone operation must be licensed with flight patterns and approvals. I'll skip straight over to the slide. The contribution that the drones is making is that it allows for remote access of information to assess legitimacy and threat statuses. So to deploy them for malign purposes plays a very critical role in the control of the drone and how that control structure will be set up. So you have then the hardware implications of drones, which is that you need drone pilots, you need control stations, you need pilot training. Control stations may also form part of local employment centers and direct investments into communities. So you have your hardware aspect, which is not just your infrastructure, your superstructure, and your equipment, which is your drones, and to some extent includes also its consumables, but you also have your software implications for it. Now, a drone is just a drone until you've loaded a payload onto it. And in this research, the argument is made that it can detect now for 4 different transnational crimes. And that 4 different transnational crime detection is made possible by loading software on the payloads of the drones. In other words, a configuration of the software of the payload of the drones. So the kinds of targets that would be looked for in this process is to combat the avoidance by shipping lines to purchase more expensive fuel, the elimination of bunker fuel, which is air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, compliance with the sulfur cap limited. So in other words, the scanners that is deployed in the drones is directly derived from international conventions. And therefore, it needs to be acknowledged in African policy and legislation frameworks. So such, for example, as scans, and scans, which is sensors, is 4th IR application. And to combat that within a legislative framework, you need to have a policy that has been developed for it, that brings in the international convention for it and translate it into national legislations to be implemented on local judiciary systems. So I will skip target acquisition as well. Just further in terms of the benefits of these drones that we've researched is the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes. Now, this office, because it is a sister of the IMO and belongs to the United Nations, provides Africa with the relevant tools to actually draw from, being able to implement fourth IR applications such as drones with sensors as payloads, and to be captured within a judiciary framework. But if you look at what are the complete and total implications of drone operations, then one first needs to understand that drones, that cybersecurity, you have to first look at what is between the keyboard and the chair, and that is the human being. It's how smart the human being has made that system, and if he's able to dumb it down when a cybersecurity attack is being detected. So it brings in the element of human testing, which is frowned upon as constitutional rights comes into play. However, it leads to a profound acceptance that has to be made that human beings is what makes any network actually function, regardless of the tools that it's got to its capabilities. So if you are stretching that into an independent, secure overriding capability, then you have to consider what would be the hardware implications, because your cyber network may very well be extremely secure in terms of its digital format, but it doesn't mean that your hardware for it is actually enjoying the same security. So when you look then at the case against drones from a cybersecurity perspective, the threats that we've detected is social engineering, third-party exposure, configuration mistakes, poor cyber hygiene, and the new concept that we're dealing with in shipping, which is digital twinning. Then also cloud vulnerabilities. But most importantly, because all of us are glued with this in our hands, is mobile device vulnerabilities. Now, the Internet of Things has expanded to include the Internet of Things at sea. And that is a complete new, you can see there's an intraweb for everything that is happening on sea. And many of it is replicated in terms of port community systems on land. In Africa, port community systems has thus far experienced a low implementation ratio in comparison with the rest of the world, simply because we go back to the same thing. The international convention has not been implemented in terms of national legislations and national policy framework developments. The rest of it is ransomware, poor data management, and then also we sit with a phenomena of inadequate post-attack procedures. A great example of this is AP Moller, who's Maersk Sealand. They used to own 6 out of every 10 ships on the waters. They're nowadays the world's second largest shipping company. They had a cyber attack and they lost $300 million within a period of 3 weeks. But they had an infrastructure to manage the cyber attack via WhatsApp. And WhatsApp itself is not secure at all. So much of that loss that they experienced was also contributed to the fact that they had poor cybersecurity hygiene in place and that they had an inadequate response into managing the cyber attack after the attack. So that is my story in a nutshell. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to shed a little bit of light on what cybersecurity means for the maritime industry in South Africa and the unique challenges that we experience with it, and how we are all trying to focus on getting the technology aspect, the policy and legislation area of it in place and drive it by industry to make the changes in Africa that is needed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your presentation. It's quite very informative, taking perspective from the maritime sector, which is also one of the sectorial space in Africa. Thank you for your presentation. And now we have had some very interesting exchange among our speakers here. So in the perspective of Africa, where could we advise that we take very critically, we are conscious on how we could evolve the awareness of cybersecurity in Africa? Where should be the starting point for Africa? Because looking at the adoption rate of frameworks in the AU is so low compared to just 14 compared to 54 countries. There's still a lot of work to be done, and digital technology is fast spreading in Africa, so we have to quickly start from somewhere. And banking on the experience of Laura, please could you share with us what you think should be our starting point in Africa? Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking this question from me. As I said, I see that it should be very wide approach, but I understand that you have to start somewhere. International collaboration in the topic is definitely something very, very important, because those cyber threats very often are universal. As I said, digital sphere is universal. So the kind of attacks we see here in Estonia probably quite soon will emerge also in UK or vice versa, or in South Africa. So this is one approach, that international communities or for example, if you have already CSIRTs in place, then community work in order to make those cybersecurity communities exchange information between each other. This is very important. International collaboration. Then the second layer would be a cooperation inside your own country. So not only that public sector is dealing with something, and then banks and telcos and utility companies are having their own communities where they discuss their cybersecurity issues, but to bring them together, to contribute together, to have knowledge exchange, also maybe skills exchange, workforce exchange. So maybe some people who have worked for the banks will join the government, and vice versa. This has also proved very nice here in Estonia. Yes, I know it depends also on the culture of the concrete country, because I know that in some countries it's not very common to move between the sectors, but it brings a lot of good collaboration and increase in skills when this kind of collaboration is done. And then when we go to general public, academia, schools, as Kamal also pointed out, the level of cyber awareness in African kids is very, very low. So how to boost this one? There are and have been very many projects also in Estonia, where this whole digitalization actually emerged, was that we started the project called Tiger Leap, which was in 1992, straight after our re-independence. And what was the project about was that the first public institutions where the internet was given and the computers and all the technology were the schools. And very often I'm being asked that, okay, we can't digitalize because we have elderly people. But it's very bad way of saying, but this problem at some point diminishes, and now we see that those people who were at schools in their 90s are now in their 40s, so really cyber aware, really technology savvy, being able to participate in this ecosystem we have. So it's very important to educate young and to give them right tools to operate in this digitalization sphere.
Thank you so much, and that was quite a very good insights, and definitely we'll see how we evolve with this good information for Africa. And Kamal, please, where should be our starting point, and are we making progress in Africa? 14 countries compared to 54 countries.
Yeah,
that is a lot, a huge gap. Yeah,
I think as I said in my presentation, is we should raise awareness not only for workers, or children, for youth, but also for decision makers. The problem is when we talk about cybersecurity, the people which they have the authority to allocate budget or to put policies, they are not aware of cybersecurity. They are not aware of cybersecurity. They hear in the media there is a cyber attack, ransomware attack, but they don't really understand. Most of them, they are not into technology most of the time. They don't know the problem. They didn't maybe suffer from cyber attack before, or they don't know. They suffer, but they don't know. But the problem is even in companies, when we try to talk with the CEOs or decision makers, they put technical training is very important. Some management training is very important. Cybersecurity is maybe somehow important, but they don't allocate budget for this. Of course, in multinationals and the big companies and big corporates, they have, because most of them headquarters, it's outside Africa, in Europe or United States or some big countries. But in Africa, if it's an African company or African government or African institute, they don't have this awareness. I think we should raise the cybersecurity importance in conferences and meetings like this. People should know about this. Also, to try to produce a very, very basic digital hygiene, maybe videos for children and youth. It's very important because one day these people will be in companies, and after they will be in management positions, they should know from the beginning cyber threats and the cybersecurity landscape. We have a big problem. Every day there is a new software, new programs, children, youth, even workers and older people, they start to use Internet of Things. You have like your watch, your TV, your lamp now, your car. Everything is it's in the digital world. You should, when you take a step to use technology, you should also take a step to understand the risk. If you understand, if you aware of the threats, maybe you can take one step also to maintain your privacy and protect your data. I think this is very important. I heard about innovation hubs and the startups hubs in Africa. There is a lot. I hope these hubs put cyber hygiene or cybersecurity training for startups and innovation, because maybe you spend 2 or 3 years developing a program or developing your project, and one day you find another hacker in China sell all these ideas, even your customer list on the deep web for any other. And when you start to be a company, you will not find nothing. When you already spend years and the effort and the money. And in one incident of cyber attack, you lost everything because you are not aware of how to secure your data, how to secure employees. And I think little in the beginning, little cyber hygiene awareness program can help to like reduce a big percentage of these cyber attacks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was just recently somebody was like asking a question. He was asking what is the major focus of these cyber criminals? Is it the banking sector? Is it the industry? The person that was actually asking this question is a startup, you know, a startup that is involved in logistics and stuff like that. So he felt he doesn't really have anything to lose, you know. So are they more focused on the governmental institutions or the banking sector or the insurance, you know, than a common a startup that is just supporting, for instance, waste management or some kind of not very finance intensive sector? What do you think, Kamal? Or Laura, maybe you want to say something? I see Laura.
Yeah,
yes.
the thing that I wanted to point out, it depends a lot also on the where the country is located, I think, because we see a lot of cyber, let's say, cyber traffic from the east. But probably the country in the very west of EU doesn't see the same kind. So for us, it's very important to protect also the government infrastructure. What is more, it depends also heavily how advanced the infrastructure is, in a way that if all, in Estonian case, all medical services, banking, whatever is digitalized, then the system itself is more vulnerable to cyber threats. So I think today nobody can start building a company, building a government, a city government without thinking on cyber threats, because when Estonia started 20 years ago, the cyber threats back then were more like DDoS attacks maybe or something, but now they are a lot more sophisticated, and that's why it is not that we will build the innovative new service, but we won't think of cybersecurity. This is not the way in today's world we could operate. But Kamal, to you, I just wanted to give this this idea that I had.
I was surprised that there is a Microsoft cyber attack report in 2021. They mentioned that 31% of a very sophisticated attacks was on NGOs, non-governmental organization or a charity organization. And I was surprised. I was thinking that most of the attacks, it's for governments, for financial institutions, for big corporates. But I was surprised 31 for NGOs, which is not very important sometimes to make money. But cyber attacks, I think, for every company, for every organization, for everyone, every person even. It's different, of course, from country to country as a percentage. But you can find in a small country, there is a hacker in the neighboring country, and they are interested to hack some companies and they sell their data. Or there is a neighbor government, they have a new technology to attack the other country, even if it is a small countries in Africa, not a huge countries in Europe or other or very, very rich countries. I think cyber attacks is everywhere. Maybe random attacks. Hacker can send millions of phishing email in 1 second, targeting millions in whole the world, and they spear phishing also to target some people. I think as a startup is very booming. I think years ago until now. Maybe it's very important even for some companies or big companies to hack some innovation from startups to use it somehow. I don't know. Everybody should take care, from a housewife at home with some private photo in her mobile till a big corporate or a big government in a country in a conflict area. But I think cybersecurity is very important because we all use technology. Even I was in a conference and we talk about poor areas in Sudan. And I was surprised that people are using internet more than people in some big countries. There is a lot of internet cafes in every place. People, they don't have TVs, maybe they don't have electricity in some areas, but they go to the internet cafe to use the internet. But if you use the internet, if you use any technology, if you use mobile phone, cybersecurity awareness or hygiene is very important for you. Starting from normal person to very, very small companies and startup till government and the big companies.
Thank you so much. And looking at the African space, I know securities are being compromised. And of course, when you look at the intelligence space, it is mostly about breaching security of other countries, trying to spy into different governments, environment and stuff like that. And you will even find out that in some African governments, in the government sector, the format of email is still based on Gmail and some other not really corporate emails. So I was very surprised. Recently, I saw that. And that could be a compromise, that could compromise their information. That is really very surprising to me, that even in the government's establishment, they are still using some kind of Gmail, Yahoo, and all those kind of, I still find it very surprising, really. So my next person now is Simone. Please, how do you see this in the governmental sector, especially in the maritime? Thank you.
SAIMI took a rather bold step in terms of maritime technology development in South Africa by embarking on what we call a technology baseline study. And a component of that technology baseline study is cybersecurity. So because we use our role for advocacy, we are a governmental organization. And what we do is we review policies and legislations that is applicable to the oceans economy in South Africa. And we provide inputs with it. We develop position papers on it. So one of this technology baseline study is actually part of our advocacy role, which we are presenting to the department that we are the closest affiliated with, which is the Department of Transport. But we also belong to the Maritime Military Research Block of South Africa. And because of our access to the military research block, we provide inputs on maritime intelligence measures that we are proposing in terms of the lack of especially policy frameworks. Now, the position that SAIMI has taken in is that we need to advocate this issue. And the only way to advocate this issue and raise the necessary awareness for it is by developing position papers based on international legislation and benchmark studies with other judiciary systems that has got a cybersecurity framework in place that we can derive benefit from and that we can mine for value that we could apply on it. So integral to this role, we started off at SAIMI by conducting a policy and legislation analysis, where we went through the whole judiciary system of South Africa, and we highlighted the ones that is dedicated to the oceans. And out of those, we isolated the technology issues, number one. Number two, the impact of fourth IR, fourth industrial revolution applications that needs to be read in line with that policy or piece of legislation. And then we looked at countermeasures for it. That countermeasures is cybersecurity, is one of the kinds of countermeasures that we've identified in the process. So we come from the perspective that if we engage in advocacy in this manner, in establishing a very clear framework that is based on international law, that is based on comparative studies, that is based on predictive analysis, and so build our positions to the relevant government organizations that should be dealing with the issue, such as our Department of Science and Innovation, as well as all its agents that belongs to it, then we are making the right impact. We are then forming the right awareness programs. And inclusive to that kind of awareness programs, we have included our other leg that the organization does, which is skills, education, and training. And embedded in that, we have the leg of various digital platforms that we offer, but we have embedded the element of cybersecurity. So in a nutshell, what we are trying to do is we are trying to avoid having a mindless awareness campaign. We're trying to build an awareness campaign that can conform with global best practices, which is international conventions, comparative studies, and predictive analysis. And that is our starting point. Our journey through this process has been the case that we want to journey through a process where we are able to not just equip government on countermeasures, but also from the moment that we are actually making somebody swim ready, and we are implementing swimming programs in schools already. So it starts from school level up through university level, up through getting into your career and building your career into different formats and shapes. So this is the approach that we've been taking, and a lot of that approach is based on international interactions with digital communities, interactions with cyber communities. And many of them cites the importance of cyber hygiene and to develop behavioral patterns where people are actually encouraged to use an exact operating procedure for engaging with devices when they're on Wi-Fi or on the internet. But that behavioral pattern is derived from hygienic standards, cyber hygienic standards. So it is a work in progress. It takes long because you have to bring so many stakeholders to the party. But we are seeing results in it. We are seeing that the value that we're creating in the advocacy role is coming directly from the fact that the comparative studies and the predictive analysis provides us with points of departure with the different industries and with the different stakeholders in them.
Thank you so much. That was quite very enlightening, and just to understand what you have been doing also in the maritime sector. And of course, right now in Africa, we have scenarios of campaign on smart city, smart agriculture, smart society, you know. So this now comes with the next question. At the society level, how should society, the common man on the streets, we have the children also who are also engaged or adopting digital technologies in several scenarios, you know, using digital devices, you know, what kind of advice in the society context, looking at in the smart city, because right now in Africa, we have initiatives on smart city, everybody trying to innovate and bringing the society and the government in terms of smart engagements. Laura, can you share with us, probably with your experience already in the society context? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a very interesting project going on together with Oslo University and Tartu University, so in Norway and Estonia, where the digitalization in both countries is very high. The uptake of electronic identity and all the electronic services is very high. But the countries differentiate a lot in terms of identity theft. So in Estonia, it's very, very low, and in Norway, it's more than the average, really highly more than the average in EU. And the question is like why? And I've been researching like legal aspects, whether there is some differentiation. There are technical people doing their research, but the bottom line, and we are soon reaching the final stage of the project. The bottom line is that actually we are as cyber aware, we are as knowledgeable as is our general public. In Estonia, something has been done right because people understand that the person I am in digital sphere, in cybersphere, might be attacked as well. My PIN number is a secret. My PIN to my bank, my PIN to the use of electronic identity is my secret number. It's not something I share on my wallet or I have it printed out on the screen. But vice versa in Norway, it is very common to exchange your credentials with your family members, and their identity theft inside the family is very, very high. They have cases where they have taken loans on behalf of family members without people knowing, because the digital infrastructure allows it. So it is. I think the most vulnerable in the cybersphere is the one being behind the computer, whether it's a grandma doing bank transactions or whether it is a government official, whoever. But it really requires knowledge sharing skills. In Estonian case, for example, all government officials have to pass a cybersecurity test, a very general cyber awareness test every year, to see what kind of courses and trainings we should do, and how the strategy, Estonian cybersecurity strategy, is followed. So there are different measures, but yeah, we can protect the systems technically, we can do whatever, but most vulnerability is still within the natural human being.
Thank you for sharing with us. And again, another very interesting question, really, because these cyber criminals, I would say, these are also professionals in their fields. And someone was asking, how do we identify these people in the society? Is it based on their profession, the work they do, their interaction with, are they registered organizations? They are faceless organizations. How could we, like an ordinary man on the streets, you know, like, oh, this person could be involved in this cyber crime or stuff like that. And are they bankable? We want to believe those organizations that are involved in this also have some kind of bank accounts. So how could the banking industry also help to checkmate these cyber crimes? So this is really an open question, really. Kamal or Simone or any one of you would like to take yes.
I think you cannot like put them in one category. There is a lot. Maybe I remember, I think 2009, I was taking a course on ethical hacking, and my son, 9 years old, was with me. And he tried one of the softwares, which is free of charge and open source, and use one of the Windows vulnerability, and put a random IP. And in 1 second, he opened a computer for another person in a shop in downtown Cairo. He only 9 years old. He didn't want to attack or to hack. He just tried to use a free source online with a small video how to use it. And somehow I work also with a group of journalists that work in Brussels with child pornography. And for the first time, I heard from them there is a criminal organization in some East European countries. They have doctors. They have already people specialized in the psychology of children, and they use their knowledge and their profession to help the hackers and this organization to try to get more victims from children from rich countries and the poor countries. And very weird for me, from a child that tried to play with his computer till a very, very, very resourceful organization. Even for governments, there is a lot of government. They use a lot of very sophisticated military-grade softwares and hardware try to attack some of countries which are not very, very good in rule of law. Even the officer who is, or the employee is responsible for the software, which is military grade, and they pay a lot. They use their software for their personal gains. And we have a lot, by the way, in my country, Egypt. I heard a lot of one officer tried to attack a famous actress by the government software, which they bought from a very high in the military country. You cannot put them in one category. There is a lot. Even maybe your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, maybe your colleague, your neighbor. You cannot put them. Anybody can use, and there is uncountable stories on social media about wife and about husband, about children, and about their colleagues, and about, of course, also government and companies. This is my.
Thank you so much. And probably we could take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. If you want, you could let us know. If you are curious of something probably you want to ask or you want to share, please let us know. And of course, we have been looking at the cyberspace in Africa, and we are seeing a lot of efforts in order to engage, especially at the innovation space. Right now, we have several digital innovations expanding in Africa. And of course, with what we do, the African Digital Leadership Innovation Network, we have been engaging, and we have had one or two questions. How could we discourage cybercrime? Could that be a campaign among the youths? Instead of trying for us to reinforce ourselves, you know, to counter cyber, could we also spend the same energy to discourage cyber threats or cyber as a profession among the youths? What do you think? Laura, probably you want to try?
Yeah, I think Simone also had her hand up, but...
Okay, Simone.
Simone?
Yeah. Simone, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to respond to the previous question. I think cybercrime, we in the maritime industry are experiencing it in perhaps the most commercialized format. Because organized crime use the maritime industry to move between point A and point B for the enablement to generate profits and sales of their activities. But the information that goes together with that act and the tools that is being used in the enablement of that information is from the cyber industry. And the link between organized crime and cybersecurity cannot be overemphasized. It has a tremendous impact on the daily life, on the normal life of a normal family, which can be cleaned up by cyber hygiene. But when it comes to making the financial punch and actually packing a commercial punch, we have seen time and time again, simply because we are the maritime industry, we are the gatekeepers of information, and we are the movement between point A and point B of goods. We find that there is where a lot of the vulnerabilities is lying in. Now, part of what has been developed in a response to it is what is called blockchain. And blockchain is part of the new technology, which is enabling shippers and consignees to go through the process of a trade transaction into a shipping transaction, where only one person at a time is allowed to make a change on the documentation, and so make strides in providing electronic shipping documentation, which again opened another vulnerable area in African businesses for the continent, simply because we inspect less than 2% of containers that's being moved around the world. So from the commercial perspective, what we now have is we now have a process where through AI, even the documentation is also completely generated, where you can't link a face to the documentation because it's electronic in nature already. And that is creating more and more opportunities for cyber crimes to happen. So how do you recognize it? And that question poses perhaps one of the most fundamental issues that Africa as an economy has to deal with. And it leads to the fact that we already don't have the capability to compete on an equal level field without cybercrime. And the increase in cybercrime is disabling us to actually even live up to that required potential.
What I want, thank you, Simona, for that one, and I fully agree. What I wanted to point out is that tackling cybercrime, it's very important how to prevent cybercrime. So what kind of structures we have in place in order to prevent it, in order for the cyber criminals to be aware that when something happens, then we can actually enforce something and impose some fines or whatever. Very often the thing is that there is not enough capacity and capabilities in order to chase the cyber crimes in a specific country, and they are always, how to say, two steps ahead of you.
Yes, yes.
Which means that the proper structure for tackling cybercrime and having also the capacities in police, in prosecution offices and so on is very, very important. How to train also the lawyers who would understand how to classify something under cyber. Do we have those norms in our criminal codes, and what can be done when we don't know the territorial implications? So where even to find that cyber criminal who has been doing some actions in the country. So how to collaborate between different prosecutors' offices across the continent or even world in order to chase those cyber criminals. So prevention is also something I wanted to point out.
Thank you so much. Yes, the prevention aspect of this is also very, very important. And of course, like the last question I was also asking, how do we dissuade this concept of cybercrime among the youths, among the society? Right now in Africa, we are having awareness campaign. We are having some kind of initiative, promoting smart city, for instance, and in the smart city, we want to have some kind of very smart interaction between the government and the society. And of course, we have identity crime as well. We have several that could be exploited, So how should we get started, like raising the awareness, especially with identity crime, and in order not to compromise our personal information also. Because when everything gets smart, we start exchanging electronic data among ourselves, with the government, with this and that, and some could take that opportunity to compromise, some kind of information. So in the society context, where should we really get started? What should be the main points in order to raise this awareness? Is it like, for instance, in a country, could we start probably from at the city level or the local government level, or how should we get started?
I have a little experience. I was working in anti-corruption projects in my home country, Egypt, like 20 years ago. And we want the same, we want awareness about corruption, because people do corruption and they don't understand it's a corruption. They understand it's a part of daily normal life. And when we thinking how we can start to raise awareness and we don't have a big budget, we start first to do like a media club. What a media club? Some people from journalists, from different media outlets, and we collect them together to learn them what's the meaning of corruption, what's the meaning of transparency, and then we manage them for 3 years first, and most of it's awareness and training for them, and then we try to support them to do some investigative reporting on corruption. After the project, at the end of the project, we try to, in our final report, to collect success stories. We find these people, which it was, I think, 150 journalists, the language of transparency, the language of anti-corruption, which we try to learn them in the training it's reflecting in their normal program, even if it's not about corruption. And they produce a lot of material about corruption, starting from a very local newspaper in a very poor area till the biggest government TV channel. I think this is part of the awareness. If you don't have a big budget or you don't have a decision from a big decision maker to raise a national campaign for cybersecurity. I think this. I want only to share this idea. Maybe it can help search for the key persons in the community. Maybe the educators, the teachers, maybe some of government officials, maybe the media. These people, when they will be capable and aware of cyber threats, maybe they will act on their local community and spread the idea of digital security. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your contribution, because what you have really, from what you have described, these are really the soft spots of targets, you know, and we live normally, you know, we felt some kind of actions, you know, it's not really necessary to be conscious of this, but we let out a lot of information, even about ourselves, you know. So, and these professionals, they target all these soft spots, you know, and extract a lot of information from in different scenarios. You understand? So really, this takes me now to the next question. We have, how could we define an effective mitigation roadmap for Africa, and at what level? So probably at what level, at the EU level or at the country level, a kind of a mitigation roadmap for Africa, in order for us to look at how we enforce some kind of a sustainability awareness, you know, in Africa. Would there be some kind of a roadmap, starting probably from the EU, or no, from the AU, African Union, connected with the different African governments? Kamal, do you want to try? There should be some kind of framework, like right now we see the level of adoption of frameworks in the African Union. We have just 14 countries, you know, that has actually adopted this, compared to we have 54 countries, you know. So how could we really, Smith, Simone?
Okay. This would have to be my last comment.
Okay.
But I can quickly respond to it. My personal experience in taking on roadmaps where you want to achieve an outcome that is derived from a problem statement is out of the nature of my industry. We rely on international conventions. So my advice to Africa is to replicate that process. One, look at the international convention that exists on cybersecurity. Two, the next step that happens from there is each country then develop a policy for its own country based on that international convention. That policy then gets lobbied in country through the different stakeholders and communities to the point where it's being posted in cabinet in Africa. Once that is discussed in parliament and it's been accepted there, it forms then the backbone of the national legislation that will be developed out of that policy. Once that is then taken place and promulgated as from bill area being promulgated into legislation, That is where you want to be, which is where it normally stops for Africa, because we get to the point of getting the legislation, but we neglect to implement. So in a roadmap for Africa for this is, we need to look at the international convention, ratify it, develop a policy on it, develop the national legislation based on that policy, promulgate the legislation, and develop an implementation plan. And from there on, rely on monitoring and management functionalities that is built in through regulations. And that regulations, functions and roles is normally derived out of the legislation that has been developed that caters for the functionality of a regulator. My apologies, everybody. It was lovely to engage with you. My son is participating at the university, and he just sent me a message saying, "Mommy, I'm on now." So I would love to continue, but I only get once a year the opportunity to see him in full action for shot put, and he's been practicing very hard. So my sincere apologies, but I'm going to go to the athletics grounds now.
Okay, yes, thank you. We are also actually getting closer to our closing point now. Probably we could have one or two comments again on what should be the way forward, kind of a closing remark. What should be a kind of a way forward for Africa? What could be the next steps? Kamal? Yeah, okay, please, Laura. Yes, please.
Yeah, I could start. As you said, only 14 countries are at the moment collaborating on some level. Of course, having more countries, wider community between the countries, knowledge exchange is definitely something where I see a lot of value. And I would also would like to support the idea Simone had that let's not invent the wheel. Let's see how things are already done on EU or across the world with different conventions, and then try to not to take them like 101, but really like do a deep dive how those frameworks could contribute to the situation and local situation that the countries have. But for example, taking the Network and Information System Directive from EU that now already has the second generation, then it's also EU is also like a bunch of different countries with their own culture, with their own security threats, with their own legislative framework, and then there are some common principles. So the principle of having a cybersecurity strategy that is imposed by the European Commission on the member states is definitely something worth looking into, and really taking the cyber awareness and the way cyber is dealt with on another level. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And Kamal, probably
I think I don't have more than Laura and Simone raised, but because I'm already awareness, I hope your organization or such organizations or cooperation of organization can produce like any awareness campaign, maybe for people or as a policy papers and distributed to people in charge for African Union countries in any convention or any conference, or to send them to African Union. And I think you can find one or two or three persons maybe inside this organization. They can believe in what you say, and they can support the idea to raise awareness. And I think you can find a lot of funders now. They are maybe interested to pay to give some resources for such a campaign, if it is for awareness, for public, or it's for policy papers and distributed for decision makers for African countries. That's all I think.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for the African Digital Leadership Innovation Network, and this kind of campaign is also within our activities, which definitely we would like to even lead, you know, because we are promoting digitalization in Africa, but in terms of leadership, in terms of knowing what to do at what stage, you know, from the baseline, you know, directing your course, directing your next steps, you know. And of course, cybersecurity is one of the points. And of course, collaborating with eduCYBER could be a very interesting process for us to create some kind of synergy to raise really very conscious awareness, you know, in different levels in the society in Africa, because it's kind of very quiet, I would say. When we talk about, I hear of more of innovation, and when you listen to, go to the innovation hubs, you hardly hear of anything security. You only hear of expanding into the markets or doing some kind of, having some kind of profits, you know, 50%, 10%. No, those are the points. You hardly hear of the being security conscious. You understand what I'm trying to say? And it's very, very important because all those soft spots could be exploited, you know. And according to what Laura also mentioned, because these guys are 2 steps, 3 steps ahead, you know. And we have to really sit down in Africa, especially with the AU, and to see how we drive this at country levels. At country levels, at city levels, it should be a kind of a major campaign in Africa, because Africa right now is the soft spots of targets, you know, because the African society now are now embracing digitalization. So they need households from household level needs to be conscious, especially in identity theft and several other kind of use cases. So definitely the African Digital Leadership Network, and also with the European partners, we would like to take this forward in Africa and see how we could create some kind of impact in the awareness campaign in Africa. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your passion for Africa. And of course, we look forward to see how we could all collaborate going forward in Africa and to create some kind of impact in the African digital space. We'll see how we evolve from here. So definitely, I'll be coming back to you to see if we have some kind of other interesting programs in the future. Just let's keep in touch. And I will say thank you for today. And I say bye-bye for now. And
thank
see
you
again very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and let's be in touch.
Yes,
bye.
Let's keep in touch. Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.